The night sky was calm, filled with stars that looked like cold fires hanging in endless space. In the control room of the Deep Space Listening Center, computers hummed and screens glowed with faint green light. Technicians yawned, sipping coffee, thinking it was just another quiet night. Then it happened. A strange sound broke the silence. It was not random static, not a burst of noise, but something different. Something alive. The signal repeated again and again every 10 seconds, a pattern clear and sharp. The voice inside the static was weak, broken, but the words were clear. "Human, will you answer my final call?" Everyone froze. The operator at the main console, a young man named Daniel, felt his heart stop for a moment. He turned to his supervisor with wide eyes. "Sir, this is not interference, this is a message," he whispered. The room that was once sleepy now burned with energy. Phones rang, alarms triggered, experts rushed in from every corner of the base. The signal kept repeating. The same question, over and over. The voice sounded tired, like someone speaking with their last breath. "Human, will you answer my final call?" Governments were alerted within minutes. The United Nations was called to an emergency meeting. Some believed it was a prank, a trick made by another country, but the pattern inside the signal told a different story. Hidden within the sound were codes, mathematical sequences, impossible to fake. The signal came from far away beyond the edge of the solar system. Dr. Maya, a scientist who studied alien signals for many years, was the first to notice something strange. She leaned close to the data screen, her hands shaking. Inside the signal were fragments of DNA code, human DNA. Her face turned pale. "This is impossible," she whispered. "They already know us, they know humans." Whispers spread like fire. If the message carried human DNA, it meant the sender had studied humanity before. But when and how? Fear grew in every mind. Why would someone so far away know humans so well? And why send a final call as if they were about to die? Around the world, people argued. Some said the signal was a warning. Others said it was a trap. Some believed it was a cry for help from a dying race. The question spread across television, radios and the internet. Who was calling? And why were they asking humans to answer? Daniel, the first to hear the signal, felt a strange pull in his heart. The voice sounded so human, so filled with pain. It felt like someone reaching out from the edge of the universe, begging not to be forgotten. He wondered if ignoring the call would mean letting a life, maybe even a whole world, disappear forever. At the same time, military leaders spoke of danger. What if this is bait? They said, what if answering means inviting an enemy to find Earth? Fear and hope collided like thunder. But the signal never stopped. "Human, will you answer my final call?" The nights that followed were filled with restless sleep and heavy questions. Every nation wanted to know the truth. Every scientist searched for hidden meaning. And every ordinary human who heard the story felt the same shiver. It was not just a message. It was a voice, a final breath carried across stars. The world had to decide. Would they answer or stay silent? The signal waited, patient and unbroken, and the voice repeated again and again, "Human, will you answer my final call?" The world could not sleep. Every news channel spoke of the same thing, the mysterious signal that whispered across space. "Human, will you answer my final call?" Dr. Maya sat alone in her lab, staring at endless lines of code. She had replayed the signal 1,000 times, each time hearing the same weak voice. It was like a ghost calling from another world. But tonight, she was not listening to the words. She was digging deeper, searching inside the signal itself, and then she saw it again. Hidden in the static, wrapped inside the sound waves, patterns that looked familiar. Not numbers, not math, but the blueprint of life, DNA. Her heart raced as she compared it to the human genome. Yes, it was there, exact matches. This was not random, not a trick. The signal carried human DNA. She leaned back in her chair, whispering to herself, "This is not just a message. This is a map of us. They know us. They studied us. Maya sent her findings to the government team. But instead of excitement, she was met with silence. The officials did not want the world to panic. To them, this discovery was too dangerous. If an alien race already knew humans down to their very cells, what else did they know? But secrets never stay hidden for long. Soon a hacker leaked the information to the public and the storm grew louder. People demanded answers. Some cried out in fear, "We are being hunted." Others believed it was a message of hope. They are reaching out to their children. Elias, a former astronaut living in quiet retirement, watched the chaos unfold on his screen. He felt something others did not. The voice in the signal felt directed, like it was speaking not to all humans, but to one. Him. He shook his head at the thought. But the feeling did not leave. He remembered the long nights in space, the silence, the loneliness. The voice carried the same kind of loneliness multiplied by ages. Meanwhile, governments across the world began to test the signal in new ways. Powerful AI supercomputers tore apart its layers. They found hidden coordinates, far beyond the edge of Pluto, a place where no human had ever gone, and tied to the coordinates was something stranger still, a sequence that matched a single human DNA profile. One man out of billions, Captain Elias. The officials came for him in the dead of night. He stood at his door, calm but confused. "Why me?" he asked. They showed him the decoded data. The signal had chosen him before he even knew it. His blood, his genes, were written inside the call. In secret halls, leaders argued. Sending him is madness. It could be a trap. Some shouted, "Or maybe this is destiny." Others whispered, "Maybe he is the only one who can answer." The mystery deepened. Why would a voice from the stars choose a single human? Why would it carry human DNA, as if it had known Earth long before Earth knew it? And why speak of a final call, as if this was the last chance before silence forever? Dr. Maya continued her work. She began to notice more hidden codes in the signal, not just DNA but warnings, symbols of destruction. It looked like the dying record of a civilization, a race that had seen something terrible, something strong enough to erase them. The truth was clear to her now. This was not just a message. It was a cry from the edge of death, a dying world reaching out, leaving their knowledge, their hope in the hands of humans. And as the voice repeated again that night, the same words shivered through every radio, every speaker. "Human, will you answer my final call?" The night Elias was taken from his home, the world outside was quiet. But inside his heart, storms were rising. He sat across a table in a hidden government facility, the bright lights burning his tired eyes. A group of officers and scientists surrounded him, their faces tense, their voices sharp. On the table lay a file with his name written in bold. Inside were pages of numbers, charts, and DNA sequences. The evidence was clear. The alien signal contained his genetic code, not just pieces but a complete match. It was as if the voice from the stars had called him by blood, by name. Dr. Maya entered the room, carrying her laptop pressed tightly to her chest. Her eyes met his, filled with both fear and strange respect. "Captain Elias," she said softly, "the signal was not meant for all of us. It was meant for you." The words felt heavy in the air. He leaned back, shaking his head slowly. "This is insane," he whispered. "I never asked for this. I never wanted this." But deep inside, a small echo stirred, the same echo he had felt when he first heard the signal, a feeling that the voice was waiting only for him. The officials spoke of duty. "You are the chosen messenger," one of them said. "You must answer the call." Elias clenched his fists, his voice low. "And what if it's a trap? What if I'm being led to my death?" The room went silent. No one had an answer. For days he was kept inside the facility under watch. Outside, the world debated furiously. Some people worshipped him as a hero, calling him the destined one. Others cursed his name, saying he would bring destruction to Earth. But no matter what people said, the signal never stopped repeating. It was as if the universe itself was waiting for his decision. At night, Elias stared through the small window of his locked room. He remembered the years he had spent in space, the loneliness, the silence between stars, and then the voice returned to his mind, weak and broken. "Human, will you answer my final call?" It felt less like a question and more like a plea. Dr. Maya visited him again, this time alone. She sat quietly across from him, her eyes tired from sleepless nights. "You think this is unfair," she said gently. "But maybe it's not about fairness, maybe it's about survival." Elias frowned. "Survival of who?" She whispered back, "Maybe of them, maybe of us." Her words lingered in his thoughts. What if ignoring the signal meant letting a whole world die? What if answering it meant saving humanity's future? The weight of such choices pressed against his chest like iron. Then came the final proof. The AI decoded a hidden line of the signal. It was faint, almost buried in noise. But when cleaned, the message was clear. It spoke directly, not to human, but to one name. Elias. The room filled with shock. The scientists gasped. The officers exchanged nervous looks. It was undeniable. The message had called him personally. The alien voice knew his name, knew who he was. The final call was not to mankind, but to him, and so the choice was sealed. The leaders could no longer ignore the truth. A special mission was prepared in secret. A ship built for speed and distance, armed with the best technology Earth had. And at the center of it all, Captain Elias, the one chosen to carry humanity's answer into the dark. As he stood before the launch hangar, the massive ship glowing with light, Elias felt a shiver. He had been a soldier, an astronaut, a survivor. But now he was something more, not by choice, but by destiny. The voice had chosen him and him alone. The stars above seemed colder than ever, and still, across every radio, across every speaker, the same words continued. "Human, will you answer my final call?" The ship named Aurora's Edge stood like a giant shadow against the glowing launch bay. Its black surface drank the light, making it look less like a machine and more like a creature waiting to leap into the void. Captain Elias walked slowly, across the platform, each step echoing in the steel chamber. He was not alone. A crew of 6 had been chosen to follow him. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers, all sworn to secrecy. Dr. Maya was among them, carrying her endless notes and the data she had unlocked from the signal. Her eyes met Elias's for a moment, filled with silent warning. "This path will not be easy," she whispered, "but the truth lies out there, beyond the dark." He gave no answer, only a nod, and together they boarded the ship. As the engines roared and Earth shrank behind them, silence filled the cabin. Each crew member felt the weight of what they were leaving. Families, homes, everything familiar fading into a small blue dot. And ahead of them waited a destination no human had ever dared to reach. The coordinates hidden in the alien message, pulsed on their screens like a heartbeat guiding them through blackness. Days passed in uneasy calm. The void of space pressed against the windows like a silent ocean. But then, strange things began to happen. First, the navigation system glitched, showing impossible star maps, constellations twisted into shapes no one recognized. Then came the shadows, fleeting figures moving just beyond the glass. At first the crew laughed nervously, blaming tired eyes and long hours. But the sightings grew. Darker, closer. It felt as though something unseen was following them. One night, Elias woke to alarms screaming. The ship had dropped out of its path, drifting off course. The engines had cut on their own. No system failure, no damage, only silence. In the control room, the screens flickered with static, and buried inside the noise, the voice returned. Weak, broken, yet commanding. "Closer. Follow. Not much time." Maya leaned forward, her face pale. "It's changing the route," she whispered. "It wants us to follow deeper, somewhere even beyond the original coordinates." Fear spread through the crew. One soldier slammed, his fist against the wall, shouting, "We're being dragged into a trap, can't you see it?" But Elias stood calm, his voice firm. "No, this voice has chosen me, chosen us. If it wanted us dead, we would already be gone." The argument split the crew. Some wanted to turn back, others to trust the call. But the ship moved forward as if guided by invisible hands. Lights flickered, instruments froze, yet the engines obeyed a will not their own. They were being carried into a region of space no human chart had ever named. Outside the windows, the stars began to bend. Shapes twisted, lines of light stretched like liquid. It was as if space itself was folding, wrapping around them. The crew stared in silent awe and fear. One whispered, "We should not be here. This is not for human eyes." Elias felt the pull strongest, a pressure in his chest, as if the voice inside the signal was not only in the ship, but inside him. Every heartbeat matched the rhythm of the hidden coordinates. Every breath carried the weight of the final call. He could not escape it. And deep down, he did not want to. The journey grew colder, stranger. At the edge of their vision, distant lights flickered like dying lanterns. Dead stations, shattered ships, ruins drifting in eternal silence. It was not only a path, it was a graveyard of those who had traveled before. And the whisper returned once more, weaker than ever. "Human, hurry, before they arrive." Elias gripped the console tightly. Who were they? And what waited in the darkness ahead? The ship moved forward, swallowed by a silence. Deeper than death, the journey had begun, but the true danger had only just awakened. The graveyard of ruins stretched endlessly around Aurora's edge. Shattered hulls of alien ships floated silently, their surfaces scarred by unknown weapons. Some were massive, larger than any human city, while others were no bigger than drones. All of them were dead, frozen in time like bones left in the dark. The crew whispered among themselves, their voices trembling. Every window showed the same picture, destruction without life. It was clear this was not an accident. This was war, and someone had lost everything. Then the voice came again, weak, broken, like a candle flickering in the wind. This time, there was more than just the question. Static filled the speakers, then words pushed through, heavy and desperate. "Human, listen, no time. They come. Run." The cabin froze. Every face turned pale. Maya pressed her headphones tighter, adjusting the filters. She caught fragments buried deep in the static, fragments of fear. Final breath. Last hope. Answer. Before silence. Elias closed his eyes, the words cutting through him like knives. It was not just a message, it was the last cry of something alive, something dying. The voice carried sorrow so deep it felt almost human, and still it called for him. Only him. The soldiers shifted uneasily, gripping their rifles though there was nothing to fight. One of them whispered, "Who are they? What is chasing this thing?" No one answered because no one knew, but the fear was spreading like poison through the crew. Outside, the ruins drifted closer. The ship passed a massive station torn open like paper, its walls blackened, its core hollow. Lights flickered faintly inside as if refusing to die completely. Maya's hands trembled as she recorded the images. This was a civilization, she whispered, a great one, and it was erased. The voice returned once more, weaker than before. Now it was almost a whisper. "Elias, they follow, they silence all voices, answer or fade." Everyone turned to Elias. The name was spoken clearly this time, carried across light years, yet sharp as if whispered in his ear. The weight of destiny pressed on him heavier than ever. He was no longer just the chosen messenger. He was the last. Chance fear gripped the crew tighter. One engineer shouted, "This is madness, it's leading us into a trap, can't you see?" Another snapped back. "Or maybe it's leading us to survival, maybe it's warning us of something worse." Voices rose in anger, fear turning into chaos. Elias slammed his fist on the console, his voice cutting through the storm. "Enough," he said. "We came here to answer, and we will answer." But even as he spoke with strength, inside his chest, doubt burned. What if the voice was not a friend, but bait? What if they were already watching, waiting for humans to follow the way? Signal like moths into fire? The ship drifted deeper into the graveyard. Every ruined vessel seemed to lean closer, whispering their own silent warning. The air inside the cabin grew colder, heavy. Maya stared at Elias, her voice soft. I think whoever sent this, they are dying, Elias, and if they die before we reach them, their knowledge dies with them. The signal flickered again, weaker still, like the last pulse of a fading heart. Human, answer. Before silence. Elias stood slowly, staring out the window into the endless dark. He could feel it now, not just the sound of the voice, but the presence of something watching from the shadows beyond the ruins. His chest tightened, as if unseen eyes were pressing down on him. The words repeated in his mind, echoing deeper than sound. Human, will you answer my final call? And somewhere in the darkness beyond the graveyard something moved. Not wreckage, not ruins, but a shape alive, waiting, approaching. The ruins thinned as Aurora's edge followed the signal deeper into the void. The graveyard of broken ships gave way to silence. And then far ahead a structure appeared. It was not drifting like the others, it was still anchored, still alive in some strange way. A massive station, dark and cracked, but holding together like a heart that refused to stop beating. The crew fell silent as it grew larger in the windows. Its surface was carved with symbols, glowing faintly as if fire still burned under broken skin. No human had ever seen such architecture. Tall towers bent at impossible angles, bridges curved like frozen waves. It was both beautiful and terrifying. The signal grew stronger as they approached, the weak voice now clearer, but fading. Here. Hurry. Before silence, Maya's hand shook as she adjusted the receiver. It's coming from inside that station, she whispered. The source is still alive. Barely. The ship docked at a shattered airlock. Metal groaned as the doors opened, stale air rushing in, carrying a smell like burned stone. The crew stepped inside cautiously, their lights cutting through endless halls. Dust floated in the air, and every shadow seemed to move when the light touched it. Bodies drifted in the corridors. Not human bodies, but alien forms, tall and thin, with strange limbs and faces like stone masks. Their skin had turned gray, their eyes empty. The soldiers tightened their grips on their rifles, hearts racing. One whispered, "This place is a tomb." But then something flickered at the end of the hall, a faint glow, pulsing like a heartbeat. Elias led the way, his boots echoing against the floor. The crew followed in silence, fear pressing on their shoulders. They entered a wide chamber, its walls cracked but still alive with faint streams of light. At the center was a sphere, floating above a broken pedestal. The sphere glowed weakly, its surface shifting with symbols and faces that changed like ripples in water. And then, from the sphere, the voice spoke again. Human. At last, the crew froze. It was not through their radios this time, not through machines. It was inside the room, inside their heads, as if the walls themselves were speaking. The voice was old, tired, filled with sorrow. Elias stepped forward, slowly. "You called me," he said softly, his voice trembling. "Why me?" The sphere pulsed. Fragments of images filled the chamber, projected in the air like living memories. Worlds burning, cities collapsing, ships torn apart by fire. A war beyond imagination. And through it all, the same predators, dark shapes with claws of metal and eyes like fire, the enemy. The voice returned, broken and heavy. "We fell. They silence all. They end every voice. You. Last chance." Maya's breath caught. They wiped out this entire race," she whispered. "And now they are coming for us." The sphere flickered again. This time the image changed, showing Earth, small and fragile in the dark, then shadow spreading across it, devouring its light. The message was clear. The same fate was coming. Elias clenched his fists, anger burning inside him. "What do you want from me?" he demanded. The voice wavered, but the answer was clear. "Carry our memory, fight, or all will fall." The crew looked at one another, fear in their eyes. This was not just a warning, it was a passing of burden. This alien race, whoever they were, had placed their final hope in humans, in Elias. The sphere dimmed, its light fading fast. The voice whispered one last time, almost breaking apart. "Human, Answer, before I fade. And then the chamber shook. The ground rumbled under their feet, dust falling from the ceiling. The soldiers raised their weapons. Maya grabbed Elias's arm. Something else is here, she whispered, terror filling her voice. Something is moving in the shadows. For the first time, Elias realized they were not alone in the station, and the voice had not only been warning them, it had been warning itself. The chamber shook again, harder this time. The glowing sphere flickered weakly, its light pulsing like a dying heart. The crew raised their weapons, but the silence that followed was worse than any sound. It was the silence of something watching, something waiting. Elias scanned the dark corners of the chamber, his pulse racing. He felt it before he saw it, a weight pressing against his chest, like invisible eyes staring through him. The soldiers whispered nervously, their beams of light cutting across broken walls and drifting dust. Then a sound came, low and sharp, like claws dragging against metal. Maya gasped, her hand tightening around Elias's sleeve. "It's here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The ones that destroyed this place." The sound echoed again, closer this time. The shadows in the hall moved, not from the crew's lights, but from something alive, something slipping between the ruins like a predator in tall grass. One soldier fired into the darkness, the gunfire exploding in the chamber. The shots lit up the hall for a split second, and in that flash they saw it. A figure, tall, armored, moving on limbs too thin for its body. Its eyes glowed red like burning coals, and then it vanished back into the dark. Panic spread through the crew. They backed toward the sphere as the shadows grew thicker. The glowing orb pulsed wildly as if trying to warn them. "Run! Run! They come!" The dying voice whispered inside their heads, but the path back to the ship was no longer clear. The corridors behind them shifted with movement, heavy steps echoing closer and closer. The predators were not alone. There were more of them, hunting, circling, closing in. Elias steadied his breath, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Stay together. Do not break," he ordered. His words steadied the crew for a moment, but fear still gnawed at their hearts. The soldiers formed a line, weapons aimed, though their hands shook. From the shadows came a hiss, a sound like 1,000 voices whispering at once. The air grew colder. The lights flickered. One of the engineers dropped his equipment and screamed. He swore something had touched him in the dark, a claw scraping his shoulder. But when the light swung toward him, nothing was there, except a fresh mark on his suit. Maya's voice broke. "They aren't just hunters, they're playing with us," she said, "testing us before they strike." The orb spoke again, weaker than ever. "Not fight. Yet. Survive. Escape." Its glow dimmed further, its energy nearly gone. The last guardian of a dead race was fading before their eyes. Elias knew they could not stay. If the predators attacked fully, the crew would never leave the station alive. He grabbed Maya's arm and pointed toward the emergency tunnels shown on the hologram map flickering near the sphere. "This way," he said. "We move now." They ran through the corridors, their footsteps echoing like drums of panic. Every corner seemed alive. With shifting shapes, red eyes watching from the dark, the soldiers fired again and again. But each time the creatures slipped away before a bullet could land, it was as if the shadows themselves were alive. The crew reached a long hallway that led back to their docking bay, but before they could enter, the predators revealed themselves, fully, tall figures cloaked in armor that shimmered like black glass, eyes burning red, their mouths split open with a hiss, rows of sharp teeth glinting in the faint light. The crew froze, their fear choking them. Maya clung to Elias, whispering, "These are the ones." The voice called them the silencers. The predators did not charge, not yet. They only stood, watching, blocking the way. One raised its claw slowly and dragged it across the wall, leaving a deep mark in the metal. The sound echoed like a warning, and then the orb's voice spoke one last time, so faint it was almost gone. "Human, if you fall, all will fall." The light of the sphere died. leaving only the burning eyes of the enemy to guide the darkness, and for the first time, Elias understood. This was not only first contact with another species, it was first contact with humanity's greatest enemy. The crew of Aurora's Edge stood frozen before the predators. The dark armored figures filled the hallway, their glowing eyes burning like coals in the night. But they did not attack. Not yet. Instead, they waited, still as statues, as if watching to see what the humans would do. Fear clamped down on every heart. One soldier's hands shook so badly that his rifle rattled against his chest. Another whispered, "Why don't they strike? Why are they just standing there?" No answer came, but Elias understood something. This was not a hunt. This was a test. The silencers, as Maya had named them, were not simply killers. They were measuring, studying, pressing on the human mind like invisible knives. Every glance from those red eyes felt like it cut into the soul. Elias could feel it in his chest. Pressure building, thoughts twisting. It was more than fear. It was doubt, spreading through the crew like fire through dry grass. The first crack came from inside. One engineer dropped his helmet and screamed, "They're inside my head," he cried, clutching his temples. "They're showing me my death." His body shook, eyes rolling back. The soldiers grabbed him, but it was too late. His mind had shattered under their gaze. The crew stumbled. Back in terror, Maya's voice broke through the panic. "They are not just attacking us with claws or weapons," she said. "They attack with fear, with illusions. They want us to destroy ourselves before they even strike." The silencers hissed softly as if pleased. Their shadows stretched longer, twisting like living things. Elias looked around at his crew, saw the cracks forming. One soldier raised his gun at another, shouting, "You're one of them! You're leading us to death!" The accused soldier screamed back, rage and panic mixing. The silence between them was about to break into blood. Elias stepped forward, his voice sharp and unshaking. "Stop," he commanded, his tone cutting like steel. He turned to all of them. "They want us to turn on each other. They win if we lose trust. We hold together, or we fall." But even as he spoke, he felt the weight pressing harder. Images flashed in his mind, visions of Earth burning, of his own death alone in the dark. Whispers crawled inside his head, telling him to give up, to surrender. He clenched his jaw, forcing the thoughts away. If this was the test, then humanity's answer had to be strength, not fear. Maya stepped beside him, her eyes steady. "He's right," she said, her voice calm despite the terror. "They test us because they fear us. If they can break us now, humanity will never rise, but if we endure, we prove we are more than prey." Her words steadied the crew. The soldiers lowered their weapons, breathing hard. The engineer, who still trembled, was pulled back to safety. The crew began to move together again, side by side. The predators hissed once more, their red eyes narrowing, and then slowly they stepped back into the shadows, vanishing as if melting into the walls. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was victory. For the first time, the crew realized the silencers had not destroyed them. The humans had resisted. Elias exhaled slowly, his hands shaking but his voice strong. "They tested us and we held," he said. But deep in his heart, he knew this was only the beginning. If the silencers had stepped back, it was not because they were defeated. It was because they had measured humanity and found it worthy of the real fight. The corridor shook suddenly, alarms ringing in the ship's comms. Maya grabbed Elias's arm, her eyes wide. "They're not done with us, Elias. That was only the first trial." Outside the station, lights moved in the dark, dozens of red eyes gathering in the void. The silencers were waiting, not just for Elias, not just for the crew, but for all of humanity. And in the stillness of the ruined station, Elias heard the voice again, faint, desperate. "Human, prove you are more than prey." The crew staggered back into the heart of the alien station, their breaths heavy, their nerves shaking. The encounter with the silencers had left them scarred, yet something inside them had hardened. They had survived the test, but survival was not enough. If humanity was truly next on the predators' list, they needed more than courage. They needed power. Maya studied the dead sphere at the center of the chamber. Its glow was gone, but faint lines of energy still crawled across its surface. She brushed her hand over the cracked pedestal and froze. Symbols lit up faintly beneath her touch, lines forming patterns across the wall. "It's not dead," she whispered. "It's hiding something." Elias stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "What is it?" he asked. Maya's voice trembled with both fear and wonder. "A vault. A hidden layer of the message. Something the silencers couldn't destroy." The walls shuddered, grinding as ancient machinery stirred awake. Dust fell from the ceiling as a section of the floor split apart. From the depths rose a structure, a massive pillar covered in glowing carvings. At its top was an object unlike anything they had ever seen. A weapon, sleek and alien, floating in the air as if gravity itself bowed to it. The crew stared in silence. Off filling their eyes, one soldier whispered, "It's waiting for us." But Maya shook her head. "No, not for us. For him," she said, her gaze fixed on Elias. Elias felt the pull instantly. The weapon glowed brighter as he stepped closer, its light reflecting in his eyes. He reached out slowly, and the moment his hand touched it, the chamber erupted with light. Images flooded his mind. Visions of the war the aliens had fought, their weapons, their fall. And then one vision burned clearer than all the rest. Humanity rising, holding this weapon, fighting back against the silencers. Elias gasped and staggered back, but the weapon clung to him, wrapping him in streams of light. Symbols crawled across his skin like living tattoos. Maya rushed to him, shouting, "What is it doing to you?" But Elias's voice was calm, steady, as if he understood something. "No one else could. It's bonding. It was built for us. For me." The soldiers exchanged uneasy looks. One muttered, "Or it's controlling him." Doubt spread again, but Elias stood tall, the weapon hovering at his side. It was not heavy. It was not metal as humans knew. It was something alive, something that responded to thought, to will. The chamber pulsed again, a last whisper from the fading sphere. "Human. Our last gift. Finish what we could not." The silence that followed was heavy with meaning. This was no ordinary weapon. It was a legacy, the last hope of a fallen race, but it came with a burden. If Elias carried it, he carried their war, their enemy, their fate. Maya's voice broke the silence. "If this works, it could turn the tide, but if it fails, it could destroy you." Elias looked at the weapon, its glow steady, loyal, waiting. His answer was simple. "Then I cannot fail." Outside, the station groaned, alarms blaring as the silencers gathered again. Their shadows moved in the void, their eyes burning brighter. They had felt the weapon awaken and they would not let it leave. The crew rushed back to Aurora's edge, the weapon floating at Elias's side like a silent guardian. Every step felt heavier, every shadow closer. When they reached the docking bay, the predators were waiting, rows of burning eyes staring through the dark. The soldiers raised their rifles, hearts pounding, but Elias raised the weapon, and the air itself trembled. For the first time, the silencers stepped back, their hisses turning to growls of rage. The crew knew then what the weapon was, not just a tool but a message. The silencers feared it because it was the one thing that could end them. The docking bay shook as Aurora's edge tore free from the dying station. Behind them, the ruins collapsed, swallowed by silence and shadows. But ahead, the void lit up with red eyes. Dozens of silencer ships rising from the dark. They were waiting, a fleet of hunters circling their prey. Elias gripped the alien weapon, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat. The crew scrambled to battle stations, fear and fire mixing in their eyes. Maya shouted coordinates, her voice shaking, but firm. "They're closing in fast. There's no path back unless we fight through." The silencers struck first, their ships moving like blades of black glass. Streams of burning light slashed across the void. The Aurora's edge shuddered as shields flared, alarms screaming. Metal groaned, sparks flew. But the ship held together, for now Elias stood in the control chamber, the weapon hovering beside him. It moved as if alive, responding to his thoughts. With a single gesture, Beams of pure light burst from the weapon. They cut through the nearest silencer ship, slicing it apart in a silent explosion. The crew gasped in awe, hope sparking in their hearts. One soldier shouted, "We can fight them, we can win!" But for every ship destroyed, two more appeared. The silencers swarmed like predators, endless and merciless. The battle raged, missiles streaked, lasers tore through space, explosions lit the void like storms of fire. The Aurora's edge twisted and turned, dodging death at every corner. The soldiers fired relentlessly, sweat pouring down their faces. But the silencers pressed harder, their numbers crushing, their attacks precise. Maya shouted over the chaos, "They're trying to trap us, push us back into the ruins." Elias's jaw tightened, his grip on the weapon firm. "Then we break their circle," he said. He raised the weapon high, its glow flaring brighter than ever. Light spread across the ship, wrapping it in a shield stronger than steel. The silencers hissed, their fleet shifting in anger. They unleashed a storm of fire. Bolts of burning energy slammed into the shield, shaking the ship violently. The crew was thrown against walls. Sparks rained from the ceiling. But the shield held, fueled by Elias's will. His mind burned with visions, flashes from the weapon's memory, the fallen race who had built it, their last stand against the silencers. He saw their courage, their sacrifice, and their final failure. He whispered to himself, "I will not let it end the same way." The weapon responded, its light blazing hotter. Elias aimed at the largest silencer ship, a beast of black steel at the center of the fleet. With a roar, the weapon unleashed a storm of light. The beam tore through the Predator's core, splitting it in two. The explosion rippled across the void, shaking the entire fleet. For a moment, silence. The silencers staggered, their formation broken. Hope flared inside the crew, their cheers rising over the alarms. But the victory was short. More ships emerged from the shadows, larger, faster, hungrier. The real fleet had arrived. The Aurora's edge was surrounded. Maya's voice cracked. "Elias, there are too many. We can't hold them all." Elias stood tall, sweat dripping, his body trembling under the weight of the weapon. His voice was calm, but inside his heart thundered, "Then we don't hold them. We end them." He looked at the weapon, its glow pulsing as if waiting for a final choice. Visions filled his mind again, of sacrifice, of burning stars, of one last strike. He understood now. The weapon was not built for endless battles. It was built for one final blow. Maya's eyes widened as she realized what he was thinking. "No, Elias. It could kill you. It could kill us all." He met her gaze, steady and unbroken. "If we don't, humanity dies anyway." Outside, the silencers closed in, their claws of fire ready to tear the ship apart. Inside, Elias raised the weapon one last time, light pouring across the chamber like the dawn of a new sun, and in that blinding glow, humanity's final gamble began. Light filled the void. From Aurora's edge, a storm of brilliance erupted, brighter than 1,000 suns. The alien weapon pulsed with all its stored power, answering Elias's call. The silencers shrieked, their ships twisting, their armor burning under the storm. The weapon's beam spread like a wave, cutting across the enemy fleet. One by one, the Predator ships split apart, their red eyes vanishing into smoke and silence. The black void was set ablaze, filled with fire and fragments of broken machines. The hunters who had silenced so many voices were silenced themselves, but the power came with a price. Elias fell to his knees, his body shaking as the weapon drained him. Symbols burned across his skin like fire, his breath ragged. Maya rushed to him, shouting his name, but the glow was too bright to reach him. Inside his mind, Elias saw visions once more. The fallen alien race stood before him, their stone-like faces filled with sorrow and pride. They spoke without words, only with light and memory. "You answered our call. You carried our hope. Now you carry more. You carry the defense of every voice yet to be silenced." The vision faded, replaced by darkness. When Elias opened his eyes again, the void outside was clear. The silencer fleet was gone, scattered into broken wrecks drifting endlessly. The weapon dimmed, its glow soft now, like an ember waiting for the next spark. The crew stared in stunned silence. They had survived. Humanity had survived. One soldier finally whispered, "We won." But Elias shook his head weakly, his voice rough. "No, not one," only answered. Maya helped him to his feet, tears shining in her eyes. "You gave them their final piece," she said. "And you gave us a chance." Elias looked at the weapon still floating near him, its glow faint but alive. He knew it was not just a relic, it was a promise. The silencers feared it because they knew it could end them. The crew guided Aurora's edge back toward open space. Behind them, the alien station collapsed completely, crumbling into dust. The last memory of that lost race faded into darkness, but their voice lived on in Elias. As Earth grew brighter ahead, news of their victory spread across the world. For the first time, humanity looked at the stars not only with fear but with resolve. They knew now the universe was not empty, not safe. It was full of predators, full of dangers waiting in the shadows. But they also knew humanity had answered. Elias stood before the Global Council, the weapon glowing faintly at his side. Billions watched him through screens and broadcasts. He spoke simply, his voice steady. "We were called, and we answered. But this is not the end. The silencers will return. Others like them will rise, and when they do, humanity must be ready. We are no longer just survivors. We are defenders." The council bowed their heads. The people cheered. Yet beneath the joy, fear still lingered. Because the final call was not only a plea for help, it was a passing of burden. The guardians of one world had fallen, and now humanity was chosen to take their place. That night, Elias stood alone on the observation deck of Aurora's edge. The stars stretched endlessly before him, cold and beautiful. The weapon hovered, quietly beside him, its glow pulsing like a living heart. He whispered to himself, "I answered your final call. But what if another comes?" And in the silence of space, as if the universe itself had heard his question, the ship's receivers flickered. A faint signal, weaker than a whisper, rose through the static. Not the same voice, not the same words, but another call, another plea from the dark. The message was broken, but the meaning was clear. Somewhere out there, another civilization was reaching out. Another final call was waiting to be answered. Elias closed his eyes, his hands tightening into fists. He understood now the fight was not over. It was only beginning. Humanity had stepped into the role of defender, and the galaxy would never be the same. The stars shone brighter, endless and alive, and the voice echoed once more through the ship. "Human, will you answer my call?"